Hello, my name is James Nadiger, and I'm the Associate Narrative Director for Far Cry New Dawn. Far Cry New Dawn is a standalone sequel to Far Cry 5, 17 years after a global nuclear catastrophe, and the player is a new player character coming to Hope County to help the survivors there fight back against the Highwaymen, a group of scavengers that go from place to place, taking all the resources and all the food and stuff, and the Highwaymen are led by Mickey and Lou, twin sisters. It's a standalone experience. If you've never played Far Cry 5 or played Far Cry, this is the perfect chance to jump in and see what Far Cry is all about. Or if you have played Far Cry 5, you can come back to Hope County that's been transformed and see how it's affected old friends and old enemies. Yeah, it's exciting for us because it's actually the first time we've done a direct sequel to a Far Cry game coming back to the same space. In one sense, it is on a level of Blood Dragon and Primal in the sense that we get to be a bit more experimental, we get to have a little bit more fun, go a little bit crazier than we could normally do. But it is the standalone sequel to 5 in that it's back to Hope County, seeing what happened 17 years after the events of that game. Well, when we were coming up with the end of Far Cry 5, when we decided to actually make one of the endings a doomsday, we got really excited because we've really wanted to bring Far Cry to the apocalypse for some time. We think just a post-apocalypse setting lends itself very well to Far Cry's sort of style of gameplay, a beautiful open world filled with dangerous animals and vicious villains. And also, we were building a place in Hope County and a cast of characters that we really liked, and we wanted to see them again, but in really different circumstances. So in that respect, even though we knew the apocalypse was going to be the end of Far Cry 5, we knew that the story was going to continue beyond that. Yes, absolutely. Both the specialists you need to bring back to Prosperity, as well as the guns for hire you can go out and recruit to fight alongside you. There's a good mix of returning characters from Far Cry 5, as well as newcomers to the area who've migrated there because of like environmental disasters in other parts of the world. What's fun about New Dawn is, for example, Pastor Jerome was in Far Cry 5, but he wasn't a gun for hire. But we think people really liked him, so in New Dawn, you can actually recruit Pastor Jerome now and he'll fight alongside you. And other former guns for hire like Grace Armstrong, in the 17 years since 5, her eyesight's gone, so she can't fight anymore. But if you recruit her for Prosperity, she'll help you build weapons, she'll help train your guns for hire, so she'll still contribute to the player's progress. So Joseph Seed is the leader of New Eden. It's what's become of the project at Eden's Gate from Far Cry 5. New Eden has rejected all forms of technology. No phones, no guns, no cars. They seek to live an isolated life close to nature. They are no longer the enemy of the player. They're no longer the enemy to the other people in Hope County, but that isn't to say that everyone's friendly and all is forgiven. But what's interesting about New Eden is that, like the survivors in Prosperity, everyone is under siege from the threat of Mickey and Lou and the Highwaymen, and that's sort of what sets the stage for the story in New Dawn. Sure. So 17 years has passed and there's been a lot of disruption and a lot of radiation. All the animals have been affected. For the most part, it's on a very surface level. You might have seen the pale white deer with the red antlers. What we see in the real world is that sometimes when radiation enters the space, it disrupts sort of color patterns and stuff. But Far Cry has always had sort of epic animals, and in Far Cry New Dawn, we have a series of what we call monstrous animals. It's a selection of predators that have developed sort of new natural defenses in this environment full of radiation and bliss. They've been transformed to be the most dangerous predators around. I'm not going to get too deep into the details of what New Eden or Bliss plays in the final game. I want players to be able to discover that on their own, but we are returning to Hope County. Joseph and New Eden and the Bliss had a lasting impact on the place, and that presence is still felt today. But things have changed over 17 years, so we are going to experience different aspects of that group and how they live and what they left behind from 5. So we have a lot of new gameplay elements that we're really excited about. We've introduced a light RPG approach in your weapons and your enemies. Because this is a world where you can't buy stuff from the store anymore, everyone has to make the best of what they can find by scavenging around. So as you're roaming the world collecting crafting materials, you'll be able to craft weapons. And if you improve your weapon workbench, you can craft better weapons to take on tougher challenges. The challenges you can see in the way the Highwaymen look. Our rank 1 Highwayman doesn't have any body armor, has very very simple weapons. They don't pose much of a threat, but they're still dangerous. But when you get to the rank 2 Highwaymen, you start to see a little more body armor, you start to see helmets, they start to pack a little more punch. So that's really one of the big loops of the game, to scavenge, build, and then tackle bigger challenges. The other thing we're excited about is the outpost escalations. Outposts have been a part of Far Cry since Far Cry 3, and you've always been able to replay them in like a menu or a mechanic. We've built that mechanic into the story of our game. The outposts are where the Highwaymen hoard ethanol. There's no more gas in the world that we live in, it's all gone stale. Ethanol is the liquid fuel that powers everything. You need ethanol to build up prosperity. So when you free an outpost, just like always, it becomes yours. You can fast travel there, you can craft weapons, you can get intel to get to the next activity. But when you need an extra bit of ethanol, you'll have the option to scavenge it, and that will squeeze the last drop of ethanol out of the place, but your people will abandon it. Then the Highwaymen will move back in, and it will get harder. Instead of rank 1 enemies, there'll be rank 2 enemies. Instead of 1 alarm, there'll be 2 alarms, and they'll change places. Instead of a sniper, there'll be a rocket launcher. So every time you replay an outpost for more ethanol, it becomes a harder and unique challenge because everything gets remixed. We have what we call expeditions, and expeditions are super exciting for us because for the first time in Far Cry, the fantasy is not just confined to one place. The apocalypse happened everywhere. So you'll be able to travel to all different locations around the country. Each location is a Highwayman stronghold where they're gathering up the most valuable crafting materials. You'll get dropped in, you'll have to find a package with the materials, and then you'll have to get to an extraction point to helicopter out. Just like outposts, they're replayable. Every time you play, there's a different drop-in, different extraction. The package moves, the enemies get harder, the types get remixed. So again, on a grand scale, it's the biggest challenges for the best rewards, and that's really exciting for us. First of all, it was really baked into the fantasy of the apocalypse and the idea of scarcity. Again, you can't just buy a gun and buy a scope and buy a silencer, like that doesn't exist anymore. It's really about making the most out of what you have. And so that ties into our crafting system, and it ties into even how you see the world. You'll see some people who've managed to build a house and it's a really nice house because they made the most of what they had. And you'll see other people living in not such a nice house. And that just ties into that world of scarcity and having to build up your own progress. So that's really the first idea. So making sure that the systems and the world were all telling the same story about what life is like 17 years after the collapse. It was a lot of fun. Again, just the idea that we could take something like a weapon that you might recognize from a distance as being a very recognizable weapon, but just adding that sort of handcrafted touch to it. So we have a bayonet, but the blade is a pair of scissors. Or we have objects like a paint can as a silencer. It just gives it a unique look and a unique feel, and it's part of the fun, I think, of this particular Far Cry apocalypse that we've been building. No, for Far Cry 5, the user-generated content was wrapped into arcade and like an arcade cabinet and a style. But in this world, arcades don't exist anymore. So what we really focused on was the crafting mechanics, the story we wanted to tell in New Dawn about the collapse. But with the outposts and the expeditions and the ability that every time you play, it's a different experience, like that's sort of what's driving our new challenges and our new replayability. Every time you play an expedition, it's a different experience. Every time you level up an outpost, it's a different experience. So I think that's where you get a lot of value for your playtime. Far Cry New Dawn's co-op is going to function the same way as Far Cry 5's co-op, in the sense that story progression is going to be kept with the host, but the client's progression will let you keep perk points, any crafting materials, and any ethanol that you find. Because this economy is so driven by crafting materials and ethanol, every time you play with a partner, even if you're not progressing your own story, when you go back to your own game, you are rich. Back in Montreal, I was playing a bunch of expeditions with my creative director. I had just started a new game and he was a little bit further along. So we spent an afternoon playing Expedition, and when I went back to my own game, I leveled up prosperity like crazy. I was able to craft like better guns more quickly, so I definitely think that there's a more tangible advantage to the co-op experience, and that anytime you invest in that game, it's gonna pay back in riches. Hope County is not the same size as Far Cry 5. Narratively, because of the environment, because of radiation, certain areas are inaccessible, but we've kept the best parts of John's region, Jacob's region, and Faith's region to build our map. In addition, we have 7 expedition maps that take you outside of Hope County, and those are big gameplay spaces in iconic locations in America. In the demo that we have, you could play in a flooded amusement park in the bayou, which is quite different from what we offer in Hope County. There's the wreck of an aircraft carrier along the coastline, and then there's the Navajo Hope Ridge, which is a tourist attraction in Arizona. So again, just to offer different gameplay spaces, different biomes, and a chance to see how the rest of the country dealt with the collapse and the apocalypse, as well as what the Highwaymen are doing as they're spread out all over the country. No, so Far Cry 5, the progression was measured in the resistance meter because the main push of the story and the theme of the story is that you were helping a big county full of people rise up against an oppressive force, and that was how we tracked your progression. In Far Cry New Dawn, it's a story much more centered on survival and scavenging, so progression is mostly measured by how well Prosperity is doing. As you explore Hope County, you need to bring back specialists to Prosperity to offer more expertise and to rally the community, and that's also how you progress your own player character. If you want to invest in the weapons workbench, it means you can craft better weapons to take on tougher challenges. If you like playing with guns for hire, you can invest in the training camp facility, which means your guns for hire can get stronger. If you don't want to play with the guns for hire, you can invest in the infirmary for better health. So Prosperity is what drives your own progression, and that's what lets you take on Mickey and Lou. For Far Cry New Dawn, because we started development while Far Cry 5 was being developed, there wasn't a lot of direct reaction in terms of the big story elements. Far Cry in general is always about player choice, and there are multiple endings and there are multiple instances where the player can sort of change the fate of characters or the story in big and small ways. While every game is sort of its own thing, we're always listening to our players, because we get feedback all the time from every different channels, and we have people to bring that feedback together to make like a bunch of reports about what players like, what players don't like, and every time we make a game, that's certainly always taken into effect. I can't point to any one thing that said, yes, we did this, or no, we didn't do this. It's always about what's right for the particular game. Lots of people want very different things, so even though we hear everybody, even though it's understanding, it's not always a guarantee that we're gonna do the specific thing that you wanted or the specific thing that you wanted. We need to make sure that every choice we make on every level, whether it's narrative, design, gameplay, is right for the experience that we're trying to make. No, there's no XP. Your progression is with perks, but just like you can sort of customize Prosperity to suit your playstyle and needs, it's the same thing with the perk points. If you're into stealth, then you can invest them into the takedowns, into being like more silent when you crouch. If you want to go loud, you'll invest your perk points into carrying more explosives or more ammo, that type of thing. First of all, we wanted to have a woman as a Far Cry villain for a long time now, so that was an exciting opportunity. On top of that, our creative director, JS, Jean-Sébastien Descamps, was really keen on the idea of twins, because I think for a long time in Far Cry, we have a history of like very personal conversations with one bad guy and you. Adding a second person into that shakes up that dynamic in a new and an interesting way, because as the player, you get brought into the twins world. Like they have a very intimate connection, and you can see how Mickey and Lou, they have each other's back, but as you become more of a problem for Mickey and Lou, they each respond to that pressure in a little bit of a different way, and that's also really interesting to watch unfold in front of you. Thomas Rush is essentially your boss. Thomas Rush and his group have been very successful in the past building up settlements all up and down the west coast of America. Because the people of Hope County are under siege from the Highwaymen, they send out sort of a distress call to have them come and help build up Prosperity to fight back against Mickey and Lou. But this is Far Cry, and it never goes according to plan. So the Highwaymen see that train of supplies and reinforcements coming, and they destroy it. They take Rush prisoner, and you're the only one that gets out alive. But you get found by Carmina Rye. Carmina, I don't know if you remember the mission in Far Cry 5 where you had to help Nick and Kim deliver the baby. Carmina's the baby. She's all grown up now. This is the only world she's ever known, so this is the world that she's fighting for. She will find you, she'll bring you to Prosperity. Prosperity is run by Kim, her mother. So Kim is sort of the voice in your ear as you explore. She gives you the lay of the land. So those are the first three characters you, the player, meet, and they sort of set the tone for your journey. And then as you explore Hope County, you'll meet all kinds of guns for hire, you'll meet specialists to bring back to Prosperity, but it's really Kim, Rush, and Carmina that drive the story forward early on. Nick is in the game, yeah. He's been captured by the Highwaymen. He's been missing for some time, but because they can't spare any people from Prosperity, like just been hoping for the best, but now that you're there, you can be the thing to bring Nick home. The Highwaymen are split up into their own little groups, sort of like bikers. So when you go into expeditions, you sort of see like what the Highwaymen are up to in the bayou and what the Highwaymen are up to in all these different places. So I wouldn't say it's like one giant army versus another giant army. Really, it's about the clash of two philosophies. When we were researching different models of an apocalypse, we consulted several meteorologists who specialize in like doomsday scenarios, from like one bomb to all the bombs and everything in between. So when we were crafting our doomsday, we found that overwhelmingly there would be sort of two paths to survival. If you were on a piece of land where you could grow crops and you could hunt wild animals, you could start a life where you could rebuild and make a decent living for yourself, right? You would live off the land and it would be tough, but it would be possible. But the Highwaymen don't know how to grow things and the Highwaymen don't know how to build things. So the other option is to take. All they know how to do is just take stuff. That's how they survive. So really what we see in Hope County is less like one army versus another, but a clash of different styles of survival. Are you going to be selfless and help each other build a community? Or are you going to be selfish and the ends justify the means as long as you get to survive for one more day? Yes, Mickey and Lou are the main threat of Far Cry New Dawn, and they were kids when the bombs dropped, so they were taught from an early age that like anything is justifiable as long as you get what you need to survive, and that sort of built up in the Highwaymen sense of ethics, like that's how they survive. So they go from place to place, they hoover up all the resources, and when they've bled a place dry, they move on to the next place. And what they found is that Hope County is almost like a perfect oasis, like it's got everything they need, so they've sunk their claws deep into it, and they don't want to go. Yep, as you progress the story, you'll learn more about how they became who they were, and you'll be able to find like little audio files in outposts and see how they treat their troops, because how they talk to you and how they talk to the Highwaymen are very different. So if you explore, you'll get to know a little bit more about them. So Mickey and Lou are the leaders of the Highwaymen in Hope County. They're twin sisters, so everything they do together. They have each other's backs no matter what, and all of their people know that. You can't cross one without having to worry about the other. In different parts of the world, the different groups of Highwaymen have different leaders. And every now and then, all the leaders come together, just like bikers, you know what I mean? Like they'll come from all around the world for like a demolition derby to have some fun. But in Hope County, Mickey and Lou are the threats. Just like Far Cry 5, it's mostly just the body type and the voice. Once you get that, you can sort of customize the avatar clothes any way you like. Just that we're really excited for players to get their hands on Far Cry New Dawn. The apocalypse is something that we've wanted to bring Far Cry 2 for a long time, and I think we've created an apocalypse that only Far Cry could make. The other thing that I think is important, that it's a standalone sequel. If you've never played 5 or you've never played Far Cry, this is the perfect opportunity to jump in and see what we have to offer in terms of gameplay. Or if you have played Far Cry 5, it's a perfect chance to come back and revisit a place that might have been very familiar, but that's been radically transformed, and to see how that transformation has affected both old friends and old enemies. But I think it's going to be a really good time.
Hey guys, if you like our content, do like and follow our page. Also, select See First to get the latest game news and updates. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and select on the notify button to get notified to our latest gameplay trailers. Don't miss out!